MicroStrategy's mission is to develop, advocate, support the adoption of Bitcoin everywhere in the world. So that's what we'll do. We'll do that forever. We will do that by buying Bitcoin every single quarter. Buy more Bitcoin. We'll buy it with cash flows. We'll buy it with debt. We'll buy it with equity. We'll buy it with any other capital markets activity that we can. Those opportunities will change from quarter to quarter, from time to time. I can't tell you how we'll be buying Bitcoin in 10 years, but I can tell you that we will likely be buying Bitcoin.
Welcome to a new episode, deep dive today with Michael Saylor. Michael, great having you.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we already had an interview and you find it up here or in the playlist, of course, and it was tremendous actually. The feedback was phenomenal. But let's start with rapid fire questions, Michael, and we keep it short. So what price of Bitcoin do you expect in 10 years?
I think in 10 years we'll reasonably be in 7 figures, $1 million Bitcoin.
Okay. You expect it already in this cycle, this bull cycle, or just in 10 years?
That a different question? I gave you the answer.
Okay, good one.
In 10 years.
Okay.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Or better.
That's a question I think you get frequently, I guess. Is there a question you get really bored of? Like, okay, they ask me again. Oh, why? Which one is it? Be honest.
I can't give you one. Something about Bitcoin.
Okay. So, do you have any idea? And it's all questions from my community. Do you have any idea who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Do you have any clue, or do you have somebody?
Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is.
You think, because I wrote a whole chapter in my new book about it, do you think it's perhaps not human? Or he's not human?
I don't speculate.
Okay, that's fair. We saw a big shift in the last couple of weeks in the politics in the US. Trump is pro-Bitcoin, pro-miners. We see the regulation. We see a lot of things happening in the US government. You think the US will actively work on replacing perhaps the dollar with Bitcoin, or build a Bitcoin-backed dollar?
No.
Why not?
It's not necessary. Bitcoin is digital capital. The dollar is the dollar. It's like Bitcoin, America's going to embrace digital capital just like every country is going to embrace digital capital, just like they're going to embrace Google and Apple and Amazon and the internet and the like. They'll embrace it, but I don't think it changes how they handle the dollar. I think that central banks, maybe in time, the smaller central banks will embrace Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. But long before them, I think corporations will, institutional investors will, sovereign wealth funds will. And 10 years is not that long a time in the history of things. I mean, if Bitcoin goes to $1 million, so it'll be somewhat more valuable than gold. But gold is still an insignificant asset. Gold is still an insignificant asset in every wealthy person's portfolio on Earth.
True.
So Bitcoin can go to $1 million a coin and be extremely successful, and it'll be starting to be embraced as digital capital, but we'll still be early.
You think we're still early?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think Ethereum will be around the next 10 years?
I don't know. I don't speculate.
You don't speculate. Perfect. You think there will be, it's perhaps also speculation, but you think there will be a great conflict between the US or the Western world and the Eastern world?
I don't know. I don't speculate. It's not my field.
Yeah, I know. I see that.
I wouldn't even know how to define the term Western world and Eastern world. I think we could probably spend hours debating the topic.
Yeah. But there is a paradigm shift going on, definitely deglobalization. We see the transformation from the unipolar world to a multipolar world. We see Pax Americana is ending, and even the hegemon US is faltering. You think this is necessary for a new monetary system? Because if you look back in history, it always needed a crisis to establish a new sound monetary system.
I think Bitcoin is technology and it's digital capital, and I think there's a transformation of capital from analog to digital, and I think that every company, every government, every investor, every technologist will look at that, and people will embrace it at whatever rate they want to embrace it. Like, let's take the internet, for example. Did the internet change politics in the last 30 years? I mean, if you look at the development of the European Union, what was the role of the internet? Or if you look at the development in China and Russia and the crises, and what was the role of the internet? If you look at everything that happened in South America in the last 30 years, what was the role of the internet? I mean, the internet spread everywhere. It's gone everywhere on Earth. It's changed everything, but you still have economic conflict, political conflict, military conflict. You have evolution in society, and the internet just keeps spreading. So I think Bitcoin's going to spread like digital capital. I don't think you need any cataclysmic event for it to spread. I think it's just a better idea. Like it would spread regardless of whether there was a conflict. And, you know, conflict, chaos, hyperinflation will accelerate the spread. But, you know, if Apple Computer builds the Bitcoin into the iPhone, it's going to spread because Apple built Bitcoin into the iPhone. And why will they build it in the iPhone? Because they'll make hundreds of billions of dollars if they build it in the iPhone. Why wouldn't they want to make billions and billions of dollars? So people will do it because they can do it. And countries will adopt it at whatever rate, and investors will adopt it at whatever rate they will. It's just a better idea. It's digital capital, just like digital information. It's like I don't know the role of digital photographs in the development of the Chinese, culture since Mao. Is there a role?
No.
I don't know. But the point is, digital photographs have permeated society, right? This is digital capital. It's going to permeate society. What I'd say is Bitcoin, it doesn't solve all the problems in the world. It just solves half. It's the half where you need economic power or wealth to do anything, right? Who wants power? Everybody wants power. Who doesn't want power? Right? What are you going to do with the power? Well, everybody has a difference of opinion on what they're going to do with it, but I think everybody can agree they would like more economic power, not less economic power. And the world seems very simple to me. It's like there's $900 trillion of wealth measured in dollars. The dollar will continue to expand 7 to 10% a year. That means in 7 to 10 years, there'll be twice as much of that. If Bitcoin, goes by a factor of 10 or a factor of 15, so it'll go from 1.3 trillion to 20 trillion, it could be 1% of the wealth of the world and be $1 million a coin, and the world will be whatever it's doing. Right, so I'm not really, I'm not of the opinion that there needs to be some catastrophe or there'll be some major, world
event
order change. I think that this is just good technology. It's going to spread just like mobile phones spread.
Beside your asset allocation, what else changed in your life since you dived into the rabbit hole, since you discovered Bitcoin?
I spent a lot more time studying Bitcoin.
You never get bored?
I spent a lot more time studying history.
Okay.
I spent a lot more time studying economic history. I've been introduced to Murray Rothbard. Spent a lot of time studying studying the economic history of the American colonies before the Revolution is something I never would have thought I would have been interested in. So my interest in economics and history and politics, I spent a lot of time parsing bills, parsing litigation, listening to congressional testimony. So I'm a lot more interested in arcane financial regulation and politics than I was before. All of those things have changed, and I have a lot more communication activity, right? I didn't used to go on financial television on Bloomberg or CNBC or Fox. I do a lot more of that. I didn't do podcasts. Now I do.
Yeah, true.
I didn't tweet. Now I do.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I do a lot more communication, a lot more research, a lot more synthesis in this area.
Yes. Yes.
And you could say the 10 years previous, I kind of did that and shared my thoughts with my friends.
And now with the world.
We sit around a table and there's 8 people, and someone says, "What do you think about the world?" And you talk, and the 8 people nod, and then you go home that night, and nothing much changes. Now I spend a lot more time talking about not the entire world, because I think Bitcoin teaches you to have the humility and know that you're not going to solve the 100 problems or the 1,000 problems of the world. I think I've realized I should focus on one thing, right? What is digital money? What is digital capital? What is Bitcoin? How can it be helpful to the world? Focus upon that, stay abreast of that, communicate that in a constructive fashion.
Yeah.
Right. So my life has changed in that regard. I have a mission.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. Is it a burden as well that you're very vocal about Bitcoin and passionate about Bitcoin?
No, I think it's enjoyable.
It's a present.
I think things are a burden if you feel like you've got a mission, but you're not making any progress and you're failing.
Mm-hmm. But you're winning.
Like when you're failing in your mission, right? There are examples of people throughout history that had a mission and devoted their life to something, and they just had a series of continuous setbacks. And I don't know. I don't want to speak for them, but if I was them, maybe I might deem that to be a bit of a burden.
Yeah.
But if you've discovered a mission and you're pursuing it and you're making progress and you feel like you're winning, then I think it's invigorating.
Was there ever a point where you thought perhaps, we're not winning, or where you had doubts about Bitcoin or your investment strategies?
No.
Not at all? Okay, because you understood
It's been
Bitcoin.
A good 4 years.
Yeah, no, yeah. I followed you.
The lowest point was probably when Bitcoin, at the crypto winter hit 16,000. And I wasn't lacking in optimism. I felt just fine. It was just
but what about the
people
bank?
around
Exactly.
me. When they were failing, or when their confidence was failing, then it was it required more heavy lifting, right, or more communication. Then it's pretty easy when everybody's succeeding, right? In the bull market, in the bear market, you have to work a little bit harder. But I don't think there was never, we were buying Bitcoin aggressively when it was 16,000.
Yeah.
There was never a point when I wasn't sure.
But there was no call from the bank, like a margin call, or some manager said, "Oh my God, what we're doing, we're losing it."
The closest thing to that was when Silvergate Bank failed.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, we had a $200 million loan, a Bitcoin-backed loan with Silvergate Bank, and then the bank failed.
Okay, shit.
But so that was something to be managed, and it turned out to work out well for us, because when the bank fails, you actually get to buy the loan back at a discount. So we actually benefited.
You made money out of it.
Right? If you borrow money from the bank and you've got the money and they need you to repay the loan, then you've got the advantage. So that was probably the closest thing to the low point.
Yeah.
Right.
But you never had a sleepless night or something?
No.
Okay. Many people know.
By the way, life was a lot harder before Bitcoin.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot.
it's a lot more difficult when you're working as hard as you possibly can without hope.
Yeah. But did you know it before you discovered Bitcoin that there is no hope in the fiat world? Did you feel it perhaps like a splinter in your mind?
Well, one could say that the prerequisite for discovering Bitcoin is to determine there is no hope. Like that's what we had to get to before the company would switch to a Bitcoin standard. That's what holds back other companies from switching. Because you kind of have to get to the point where you say, my family is hopeless, my company is hopeless, my country is hopeless, my strategy is hopeless, before you then open your mind, humble yourself and say, should I adopt a new idea? So I would say in 2020, by the second quarter of 2020, we had determined that it was hopeless at that point. The other strategy was not going to work. Yeah.
But then on the other side, perhaps human beings need a catharsis, need a crisis to be brave enough to go for a new path.
Yeah, I would say the principle of paradigm shift is people only adopt a new paradigm in war or in death.
Yeah.
So you either have to, all the old guard has to die, right? Teenagers and 20-somethings, they're at the beginning of their life, right? What do you want? You want fame, you want fortune, you want respect, you want a family, you want a girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
You have none of those things. You have no assets.
True.
Therefore, you have nothing to lose, everything to gain. And someone presents you with the idea of YouTube or a mobile phone or Bitcoin or electric guitar, right? Whatever it is, and you embrace it, right? The new paradigm. When you're 75 years old, you've already had the family.
The respect.
You've already got the respect. You've already got the money. You don't need to prove anything. Maybe you've already messed up your life. Maybe you haven't. But the point really is you have the most to lose, the least amount of time, the lowest amount of neuroplasticity, the least to gain. You're the most resistant to new ideas.
Yeah.
So youth will adopt a new idea. Yeah, seniors will reject a new idea. The exception of that is in a war, when you reject air power and then the enemy drops bombs on your city and blows up your headquarters, and you look up, then you realize that your thesis was incorrect. If you have cavalry and they have tanks, then you realize the thesis was incorrect, right? So in wartime, when you have massive trauma, like people all think they're going to fight the next war with the weapons from the last war, and when the next war comes along and there's 87,000 robot drones swarming wasp things to come through your window, you'll realize that all the stuff you had from 1990 that you were going to fight with is useless.
Yeah.
Right? So that'll be a paradigm shift. And I think that COVID was like the paradigm shift. But it doesn't catalyze everybody, because a lot of people didn't lose everything in COVID. Only some people lost everything in COVID. Some people gained.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's a catalyst. Chaos will continue to be a catalyst. But there's a tipping point, right, with these things. There's a point when something flips from being out of consensus, right, strange, terrifying, to being absolutely normal, to then being essential. And I think if you look in the history of technology, look at the photos of New York City in 1905 versus 1915. And somehow people went from horses on the streets and carriage to automobiles.
Yeah.
And there was a state change, and everybody was against it before they were for it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like that in the history of technology, whether it's electricity or whether it's automobiles or whether it's mobile phones, where it's just, people are against, and then all of a sudden they just flip And it happens in a hurry when it happens.
And you think this is escalating actually, this parabolic progress with technology, AI, and so on?
Yeah, I think that the world is changing at a more rapid rate. I think the next 10 years are a very rapid transformation along at least two dimensions that I'm familiar with. There may be more than two that I am not familiar with, but the two I'm familiar with would be digital money and digital intelligence.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear that there's hundreds of trillions of dollars of capital, which is analog money. And as people start to transform the analog to the digital, you're going to see profound disruptions in business models and financial applications and financial institutions. And a lot of things people took for granted for the last 30 years, they'll just throw out the window and say, what? Like if I run a survey on Twitter right now and I ask you how many of you are going to, invest in Bitcoin versus equities versus gold versus something else, I think like 3% of the people say equity. If you roll the clock back 20 years, it's like, well, like 3%, right? So there are certain things where people just don't think that way anymore.
Yeah, it's a transition.
And I think with intelligence, the AIs didn't work until they started working. And I guess they started working last year. And we're either in we're year 2, we're year 1 or year 2. I think we're year 1 of adoption of digital money. And I think maybe we're year 2 of adoption of digital intelligence. And I think they're going to spread like wildfire. And if you had to trace catalytic events, I would say the catalytic event for digital intelligence was the success of ChatGPT 4.0. When it went from 0 to 100 million users, in a month or something.
And
that was after 40 years of trying and 40 years of garbage. Like people use Siri or Alexa to pick their playlist, pick out a song. Right? That's the only app people can come up with. And then all of a sudden, this thing is composing, perfect, Shakespearean poetry or, whatever it is. And it's like not bad. So I think that kind of caused people to wake up, and that caused Microsoft to wake up. And of course, the capital markets react with NVIDIA stock and Microsoft and the like. And the hyperscalers are going to build 60 gigawatts of data centers a year, and they want 600 gigawatts. Like that's like all the electricity in the world. Like crazy. It's so powerful, right? That digital intelligence move is so powerful that it has flipped all of the big tech companies to buy up all the electricity in Europe and the US, but it's also caused them to flip and become pro-nuclear power.
Microsoft, yeah.
And so we're going to actually see a reversal. I would predict you'll see first in the US a reversal of nuclear power policy. We'll start building nuclear power plants again, and I would then guess probably in Germany at some point they'll come to their senses and do the same thing.
Yeah, hope so.
And the reason they'll do it is not because of humanitarians saying it's cheap energy and it's better. They'll do it because Microsoft and Apple will tell them to do it.
Okay.
They'll do it for Google, and they'll do it for Meta, and they'll do it for big tech. Right? They'll do it for AI. They'll do it because they need it to make their cars drive themselves and to give everyone an AI assistant and to make all the robots work.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a digital intelligence revolution. It'll remake the energy segment. It'll remake data centers. It will eventually find every single white collar worker, 2 billion white collar workers, they'll all have an AI assistant.
Okay.
Microsoft will probably sell most of them.
Okay.
Right.
So we should buy Microsoft stocks.
Well, people are.
Yes, I know.
You're not the first guy to have that idea. Guess what? Look at the stock.
Yeah.
So that'll ripple, but eventually we'll put it in our cars, our appliances, our devices, and then our robots, and then they'll fight our wars.
Okay.
And I don't know, there's good or there's bad, there's terrifying, but it is what it is. And in the digital money area, it's just, the traditional industry is, I have hundreds of thousands of crappy products, crappy assets traded by thousands of inefficient companies unnecessarily millions of times a week.
Yeah.
And then I have a lot of people writing about it, talking about it, tracking it.
It's a whole industry, yes.
And the Bitcoin idea is, what if I just had a good asset and I didn't have to trade it and I didn't need a company to tell me what to think about it? What if I just bought it and it went up in value every year? Right? So this is a big stack of complex, inefficient stuff, a lot of wasted energy. And this is one thing, very simple. That's why this goes up 50% a year and the S&P goes up 10% a year.
Mm.
And as people look at that, they'll realize I can get 10% performance with a stack of this inefficient, thermodynamically leaking Rube Goldberg devices. Or I can just buy this one thing, which is thermodynamically sound, which will outperform all this other stuff by a factor of 2 to 5 to 10 to whatever. And so those two dynamics, they'll go hard for the next decade, and they'll reform your industry, reform your job, reform the social order. It's so profound. It's like, you have a university, I have a university, it's online, we give people free education, and we think, well, maybe the AI needs to be incorporated in the course because everybody would like to have an AI professor that knows everything. Okay. Well, then you see on Khan Academy, Khan goes, yeah, we had an AI, but the problem is when the student asked the question, the AI gave the answer. I'm like, well, so what's wrong with that? Yeah. We had to reprogram the AI to keep it from giving the answer. We had to ask the student the question back. Why? See, we're throttling well, because we want to be in the teaching business.
Okay, got it.
Well, what if the AI just gave you the
correct answer?
If I said, I need a poem for my mother in iambic pentameter, and you just get it, and it's better than any human being on earth can write. Tell me again why I need to take a course in poetry writing?
Yes, definitely.
Why do you need to teach me to write it? Why do I need to learn it? Well, because you need to be able to do it. Well, why do I need to be able to do it? Well, you need to do it because maybe one day the computer won't be available to write it for you. Well, that's like saying, I've got explosives. You dig tunnels in mountains to create highways. We used to do it by chipping away. Now you can put the nitroglycerin in and you can blow a hole through the mountain. This is one person can do more work than 10,000 people with this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what if you don't have explosives? Here, I'm going to teach you how to chip away at the mountain. If I don't have explosives, I'm going to get on my bicycle, I'm going to ride to the city, pick up some explosives, and I'm going to bring them back.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go recruit 10,000 people and give them little picks and shovels and chip away at the mountain. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So the point really is the entire education establishment teaches you to do a set of things and has a certain set of subjects and has people that teach you the things. And if the AI obliterates the people, like maybe we have one AI professor that does the work of 1 million algebra teachers. Oops. Maybe the AI does the algebra for 1 billion people. Oops. Maybe the AI just builds the product that uses algebra for the 1 billion people. Oops.
Yeah.
Maybe the AI just provides the service to the 8 billion people that used to be provided by the product. But what are the rest of us all going to do?
And what are you going to do?
Well, number one, you're going to live off your Bitcoin.
If you own Bitcoin.
Well, if you're a taxi cab driver and the car is going to start driving itself, you better be buying Bitcoin because your job goes away.
Yeah. What do you think is the time frame?
Yeah, and more generally, the idea is when you have a society with labor as an input and capital as an input, and the price of labor goes to zero, and you have 10 billion robots that work for free, the capital's still valuable. The labor isn't.
Yeah. True.
And so there's going to be a dislocation between the value of labor and the value of capital. And, so while the value is flowing from the labor into the capital, the value is going to be flowing from the analog capital into the digital capital. You ever see that meme where there's the assassin shooting the one guy and the other guy is shooting the first guy and the guy up in the rafters shooting that guy? Well, everybody's kind of automating away everybody at the same time. And the truth is, it's very difficult to know how the world changes. Gibson says the future's already with us, but it's not evenly distributed, right? So one can imagine that there'll be some places that will deregulate technology, and you'll have self-driving cars and robots and AIs doing stuff, and the people won't. And you'll have other places where that's illegal, and you can't do that, right? And there'll be fights, and the technology will diffuse at different rates, and there'll be a lot of social unrest. And the question will be, how will the political system work? But if you want to look at a model, I mean, here's the question, right? You ever see a family with a lot of wealth, so much wealth that none of the children have to work? So you got like 6 20-something and 30-something kids in a family that's wealthy. They don't have to work ever. What do?
Yeah.
Right? Because
drugs mostly.
Right.
Get bored.
Some
of them, yes.
Not all. I mean,
depends on the parents, yes, how they educate them.
Okay, John D. Rockefeller Jr. didn't have to work. That's not what he did. What did he do? Right?
Yeah.
Right? He created the Rockefeller Center. He restored colonial Williamsburg. He conserved land and gave it to the world as national parks. Right? He spent an entire life in philanthropy. He spent money stamping out yellow fever. So if you don't have to work, there's a wide range of things you might do. You might actually become hyper-educated. You might get PhDs. You might create some new form of art. You might work as a scientist. You might travel the world. You might fall into dereliction.
Yeah.
You might go into politics. It's really unclear, right? You might set off on a journey to Mars. I don't really know. I mean, the fact is the society is not going to get poor. That is, we'll have more of everything.
What is your goal actually with MicroStrategy and perhaps with your personal wealth? Is there a goal? You will buy the next 10 years every quarter Bitcoin, or is there a number? You say, okay, I want to have 1 million Bitcoin and then I do good for the world, or I bring more education out there.
Okay, so the question is, what is MicroStrategy going to do? Because you asked like 3 questions at the same time.
10 actually. I have so many questions for you. No,
what is the question?
What's the goal? What's the end game? What's the goal for
what?
For MicroStrategy and yourself?
Well, those are 2 different things.
Yeah, I'll start with the
so
MicroStrategy.
You're asking multiple questions.
Yeah.
What's the question?
MicroStrategy.
What's the goal of MicroStrategy? Yeah. MicroStrategy is a Bitcoin development company. So MicroStrategy's mission is to develop, advocate, support the adoption of Bitcoin everywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. So that's what we'll do. We'll do that forever. We'll keep doing that.
And you keep buying.
How will we do that? We will do that by buying Bitcoin every single quarter. Buy more Bitcoin. We'll buy it with cash flows. We'll buy it with debt. We'll buy it with equity. We'll buy it with any other capital markets activity that we can. Those opportunities will change from quarter to quarter, from time to time. I can't tell you how we'll be buying Bitcoin in 10 years, but I can tell you that we will likely be buying Bitcoin. We'll be supporting the education of Bitcoin.
Cool. Yeah.
There's 45,000 publicly traded companies. How many are on the Bitcoin standard?
1.
Every time I meet companies and CEOs, what do you think I say to them? I say,
buy Bitcoin.
You should recapitalize your company on Bitcoin. Well, it's deeper than buy Bitcoin. Buying Bitcoin is like kind of a shallow colloquial thing. Your company is currently capitalized on crumbling credit. right? The conventional wisdom in corporate finance is to capitalize a company using sovereign debt instruments, maybe T-bills. 3-month T-bills is the safest, but it could be capitalized on Argentine debt, Russian debt, Chinese debt, European debt. There's a lot of different things you can capitalize on. They're all crumbling 7 to 20% a year, right? So they're all defective. And conventional corporate finance is to take the position that we should minimize working capital, we should adopt a toxic capital asset, and we should avoid volatility. And the MicroStrategy philosophy is we should embrace volatility, we should accumulate capital, and we should adopt an accretive treasury asset, accretive capital asset. So we're attempting to reverse the polarity of every company in the world, right? I mean, we will succeed when Apple doesn't do a $100 billion buyback, when Apple says we're going to buy $10 billion of Bitcoin a quarter. And when Apple has $500 billion of Bitcoin and buys $10 billion a quarter, they will have capitalized based upon an accretive asset. Their stock will be more volatile maybe. And, right, that'll be good for them, good for Bitcoin, right? So our mission is to drive corporate adoption and institutional adoption. Is not just the corporations, but also institutional investors, fixed it. The world's full of, there's a lot of investors that if you said to them, Bitcoin has a volatility of 55 and it has an annualized return of 50%, or 55% for the past 4 years. If you said that to them, and by the way, that's 5 times better than the S&P, do you want to buy it? Their answer is no.
Why not?
Because it's too volatile. Okay, or maybe I can buy 1%. 1% of my portfolio can be in that because it's so volatile. But if I said to you, I will give you an asset that's got a volatility of 10%, just like the S&P index, but a return of 25%, double the S&P index, they would prefer that. Okay? And so like when we create a convertible bond, we're creating a bond which has partial upside, some upside, but downside protection. And what we're doing is we're allowing people to scrape off a yield or a return which is much less risky or less volatile than pure Bitcoin exposure, right? And if, ironically, if someone would invest $1 million in an asset that gives you a 50% return with 50 vol, if you said, I'll give you 20% return with 10 vol, they'd probably give you $100 million.
Okay.
Right? If you said, I'll give you a 12% return with a 5 vol, they would give you billions of dollars. And you're like, well,
it's not,
I don't understand. Like, you're not getting that much money. They don't care. But you understand, that's if you look at the bond market, the treasury bond market, T-bills have a 5 vol, and their return after tax is 3%.
And they're a trillion.
And they're $100 trillion.
It's a trillion business.
So there's a lot of people that want low vol, low return. There's a lot of people that want mid vol, mid return, right? There's not that many people that want high vol, high return. But if I give you high vol, high return, and you run it through a heat exchanger, you can actually spit out any return you want with various mixtures of volatility. So another way to say it is, the engine in your car is hot enough to burn you, but we keep the fire in the engine, right? By the time it gets to your steering wheel, it's not gone. Hot anymore. We're just converting the
energy
heat,
and the heat.
The chemical energy into kinetic energy, and we're driving the car. So MicroStrategy's mission is to create securities that allow all these investors to buy. Most of the investors that buy our convertible bond, they wouldn't buy the underlying spot Bitcoin ever, and they would buy more. They won't buy the spot ETF unless they can hedge it with something else that they short. So like you'll see some funds, Millennium has $2 billion of Bitcoin spot ETF that they own, but they're probably hedging it somewhere else, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And so by providing people with all those instruments, you attract capital to the market, and you allow the capital to come in with any mixture of upside, downside, volatility, yield, right? And those are all useful features for connecting the Bitcoin market to the traditional finance markets. So we'll do that, and then we'll also keep educating. And we'll do some software development as well.
Okay.
But in terms of like the dollar value of what we're doing, clearly the biggest dollar value is we're securitizing the market, and we're educating the market. And then if we can create apps to enhance the market, we will.
So you're also very vocal about Bitcoin. You're an educator. Many people listen to you. There are also many memes on the internet. When you watch them, like there are memes with you, with music and everything, like there is no second best. Are you smiling, you're laughing, or you're just like, oh, come on?
I think they're funny.
Yeah? Okay, that's great. Yeah.
But you need a laser-like focus, right? And I think everybody at this point knows I'm a Bitcoin bull. I'm a Bitcoin guy. Like I believe in Bitcoin. So if you want to say something funny about Bitcoin, if you want to beat on Bitcoin and talk about if Bitcoin traded down and you want to show someone sad, you can pick my face, show me crying, and everybody gets the message.
Yeah, sure.
And if Bitcoin's having a great day,
gold.
Then everybody and you show me happy, everybody gets the message. So, people need to personify the asset. If I change my mind every month, and if I divided my attention across 10 different things, nobody would remember what I stood for.
Okay.
Right? So the reason you go viral in the world is everybody knows what you stand for. Whether they agree with you or disagree with you, at least they know what you stand for. And I'm fortunate enough to have discovered Bitcoin and put on laser eyes, and and the whole point of laser eyes is Bitcoin.
Okay.
Bitcoin. So yeah, it lends itself to memes, and it lends itself to humor, and I think anything that spreads the message of Bitcoin is good for Bitcoin. So
perfect.
I'm all for it. I like the community. I think it's good. All the jokes are great.
Okay. What is your family saying? They're not like, okay, come on. Or friends?
They don't live on Twitter.
Okay.
Like a lot of the world doesn't live on Twitter.
Okay, that's great. Okay, that's very interesting.
Ironically, there's an entire rest of the world. I mean, I'll go and I'll post a picture on Twitter, and I get whatever X, I get 3.5 million followers, and if it's a nice picture, I might get 10,000 or 15,000 likes. But I've only got 200 something thousand followers on Instagram. I post the same picture, I'll get more likes.
Yeah, weird. It's the algorithm.
I mean, it's just it's just people do different things, right?
Exactly.
People are on Instagram because they're into photos and they're into different things, and then they're on Facebook for their thing, and some people just don't even use social media. So Twitter is for crypto, Bitcoin.
Yeah. So if you're not into Bitcoin, reading books about Bitcoin, educate yourself, or on conferences like those, what is Michael Saylor doing in his leisure time? Are you sportive? You go for a hike, or what else are you doing?
Well, when I'm not engaged in corporate stuff, or Bitcoin things, then if I'm reading nonfiction, it's history, it's economic history, it's political history, it's Rothbard, it's Durant, it's biographies of the Rockefellers, the Warburgs, J.P. Morgan, all these things. So there's a lot of that, and then if it's fiction, it might be science. It's either science fiction or fantasy, which I find to be inspirational, gives you good ideas.
Yeah, definitely. But what are you doing for fun?
And if I'm not doing any of that, then I'm out. I'm out on the water. I'm either on a boat.
Okay.
You know, I like the water. I like boating, or I'm in parks. I like landscape architecture, and I like gardens. So I'll go tour.
Wow.
I'll go tour estates. You know, the Rockefeller Gardens. I'll go tour great homes, Caicut or Biltmore, or San Simeon. Or I'll go up the Hudson River and I'll tour, Roosevelt's home, or I'll tour places of interest, up the eastern seaboard. Go to Newport and tour all the houses in Newport and delve into the history of the families that built them. So that's all interesting. Or great historic estates in Europe, right? I mean, there's a lot of history in Europe, right?
Yeah. Have you been to Greece, for example?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just amazing. I just went to Greece. I saw the Acropolis, for example, and all these old theaters. It's just amazing. And yeah, gives you another time to be thankful and privileged that we're living in times right now that we can travel around the world. So is there something about, what's your favorite food, for example? Because this is a new side of yours, actually. I've never discovered or heard something that you like architecture or a landscape. So is there a favorite food which Michael Saylor loves, or?
All Bitcoiners like steak, I heard. I don't know.
Checks are the same. So you a carnivore as well?
We like steak.
Okay.
Steak's good.
What about European food? It's different to the American food.
It's all good. I like Spanish food. I like Italian food. I like French food. I like... You're waiting for me to say I like German food.
No.
I like Italian food. I like French food.
But the German food, okay.
I'm getting to it.
What about, you're a beer guy or a wine guy? You don't have to say beer because it's German.
Yeah, I'm not a beer guy.
Okay, red or white?
If I drink wine, I prefer red than white.
Okay.
Yeah.
American or French?
I'm not here to promote wines.
Okay. Yeah. So
I prefer to keep my comments focused on Bitcoin.
Yeah. So you don't share you don't share private stuff, and
I just don't think it's that interesting to people, right?
You don't think people?
I think it's distracting, right?
You think so? I think people, because I asked my community and they asked me, hey, I don't even know, has he family? What is he doing in his private time, and so on. I think the people want to know things about you, of course, because they look up to you. So they even ask me, what is his daily routine? What is he having for breakfast? This is like, wow. I won't ask him. So you want to share anything with the community or with the people who look up to you, or an advice how they can be successful or have a better health?
Bitcoin.
Great, okay.
Bitcoin's good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What's the meaning of life for you? If you're perhaps, okay, one day we're all gonna die, and you look back, what do you think? What is the most important thing beside Bitcoin? Or what's the meaning of life for Michael Saylor?
I think everybody should strive to achieve their full potential. Be the best version of yourself you can be.
But you were really successful. I think you achieved a lot. You think you're already happy and proud of your work and of your life? Or you think you can get better?
I think every day we should get up and determine that we need to be and should be the best version of ourselves we can be. I think we should all try to achieve our best.
Wow. That's a perfect closing word, actually. Michael Saylor, thank you very much for your time. And I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Please comment, please share. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And of course, you have to follow Michael on X. I will post everything in the show notes. I hope we can do this again. It was a pleasure. It was a blast. It was an honor seeing you in person after all these years. And keep up the good work, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome.